we're going to talk about how, as a leader, can you transform your team's impact just by being more transparent in the way that you communicate. And we have a super example from very recent history. And I'm here with my colleague, Dr. Frank Hanegow. Hey, Dr. Frank, how are you?
Hi, Eamonn. Fine. What about you?
I'm great. Good. So today I thought we would talk about a fellow called Lou Gerstner, who was the CEO of IBM back in the early 90s. And he had quite the problem because IBM was in a dreadful state, and he was brought in on April Fool's Day, 1993. And what he found was a company that had lost its way, where their performance was stinking. The stock market didn't like them. They were trading at about $13 a share. People were talking about having to break them up. And he said, well, boy, I need to really shake these folks up. So he started in, and one of the first things that he found was that actually the culture there was really kicking them in the behind, where they had people who were acting on a personal capacity. They were looking internally in terms of how things ought to work within the company, but what they weren't doing was focusing on the one thing that really mattered, Frank, which was the solutions that their customers needed. So they really needed to fix this. So what he did was he said, well, first of all, we need to change how people are being rewarded, because he had a lovely phrase, and you like this, Frank. He used to say that people don't do what you expect. People will do what you inspect.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly right.
So he set about, right, okay, so we need to change things. And about 6 months down the line into his job, he sent out a letter, a memo. And he got one of his senior communications people came into him one day and said, so you know that letter you sent to Europe? Yeah. And he said, yes. Yeah, well, the 200,000 people that we have there, yeah, they didn't see that letter. And he was, wait, what now? How does that work? And he said, yeah, well, the guy who runs that for Europe, for Africa and elsewhere, yeah, he didn't think that was appropriate for his group at all. So he said, oh, well, maybe we should have a conversation. So he gets in touch with this fellow and said, well, why didn't you send this out? And he didn't really buy the excuse. But anyway, he said, look, can we fix this? But then he realized that he couldn't. So he fired this fellow, despite the fact that he was possibly one of their best performers, because that sent a message out to people, look, I'm really serious about this, that we need to act cohesively as a team. We need to allow people to excel. And what's interesting about this is that it worked. Now, it wasn't an overnight success. Now, he thought, this is going to take me maybe 5 years to transform this thing. But within 6 years, the stock price, which was down way down, it was in the toilet, really. It was down to the $13 range, had gotten, Frank, would you believe this, to $135, $137. What a transformation.
Yeah, really. Well.
But what's interesting, and maybe we can get into the psychology and what people can learn from this, is that he was all about transparent leadership. He was all about being human. He was all about connection. He was all about, if you like, releasing people to do their best work. But my question for you is, at the core of this, what was it that you think that he did that caused people to react as they did to a different type of leadership?
There are two things he did. And the one thing is he came into this company and he doesn't continue with doing the same way they did before. And this is something which is quite often the problem, because people are behaving in a way they have behaved before. But this might have also caused the problem at the end. And so stopping the things you have done before is the one thing, changing the perspective is the other. So coming from the self-centered perspective to the customer-centered perspective was, I think, the core thing here.
Yeah. And tell me, so, as we talked about that, one of the issues that you have when you want to change people is that if they are in a mindset where I've always done it this way, so like his pal who said, those people, they don't need to see this memo, that kind of thing. What are the biggest challenges to getting people into a mindset where they can think maybe I might approach this differently. Maybe I won't stick to the same habits to what I know.
People stick to habits because, first of all, they are used to, and sometimes they are in a way arranged with it, but they also stick to their habits because they think they are right. And so the first thing is to tell or to show in a way, to visualize that things are not getting better, but maybe they are even leading to disaster if we do not change our habits. And so this is not an easy job for managers or executives, because people are really reluctant when it comes to change.
Yeah, and sometimes, necessity is the mother of invention. Now, obviously, when Lou came into IBM, at that time, it looked like the whole business had reached a point where it had to be just turned into lots of little fiefdoms, lots of little kingdoms, or else it simply couldn't survive. He took a different mindset. But when it comes to mentality, when it comes to reframing, when it comes to rewiring, what can people take from this example or from other examples that would help them just to help people to help themselves?
In this case, I think it's quite clear that the solution wasn't possible within the system. There has to be an impact from outside, which is a new CEO or some new challenge coming from outside. And so Lou Gerstner was the one who changed the perspective and brought some new ideas into the system. And this is something you need, especially when you are stuck in a crisis or in a problem or something like that, and you are not able to get rid of the situation by yourself.
And then in terms of how you actually bring people on board, because that was a sea change. When it comes to inclusion, are there any particular thoughts or insights that you would give people that might be helpful?
First, I think people have to understand that you are serious with the things you are going to do. So, getting rid of this guy was maybe one thing to show, okay, I'm really serious about my ideas and I won't let him get away with doing things on his own. But the other thing is to get in touch with your team. It's more about listening than about telling. So on the one hand, of course, you have to give the direction, or you have to give orders maybe. But on the other hand, you should be able to stay in touch with the members of your team. And this means you have to understand what they are telling you, and you have to listen to them even more than to talk to them. And it's more about understanding what they might say or even not say. So it's about reading between the lines. You get the information you need to take the right actions.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And maybe the big takeaways from this are that number one, that transparent leadership is all about both understanding and creating understanding. because if you don't have a meeting of the minds, it's awfully hard to manage that bus. It's hard to drive it in the
Yes,
right
of course.
in the right direction. But also that it's about setting people up to succeed. Because again, if you don't have the right knowledge, if you don't have the right information, you don't have the capacity to give of your best, and nor do you feel inclined to give of your best.
You're perfectly right. And you have also to adjust maybe your ideas when it comes to putting it into practice and into action, because you will get valuable information from the people who are already dealing with the things.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. Well, speaking of valuable, thank you all for watching this video. But if you're interested in how you realize a great deal more value through your leadership, then tune in to our next video when we're going to talk about the whole notion of the style of leadership that causes people to be more responsive, but also for you to feel more confident in your skin. So thanks indeed, Frank.
Yes, thank you, Eamonn. Can't wait for the next video. Bye.